everyone. You may be wondering what you were just looking at, and it is a picture that I took on a 4th of July that is a snapshot of doing sparklers in the yard. And some of you may be watching this that don't know what that is. It is probably a tradition unique to the United States as we celebrate Independence Day each 4th of July. You probably know, or at least have heard of the tradition of fireworks. But there's also these sparklers that you can light with a match, and then you can make designs as the stick burns. You can write your name. It's been a tradition that I have done with my mom probably most of my life, although as a little girl I'm not sure I remembered it near as much as I still very much enjoy today. And you may also be wondering why you're now looking at some leaves. And if you look closely, you can also see a bird's nest. But I chose this tree today because it's a weeping cherry, and it's the closest I have to representing a weeping willow. And why am I talking about a weeping willow tree? So, I've been thinking about the sparklers and the weeping willow tree because I've been reflecting on someone that was a part of my life for the first 14 years, who was my grandfather. And if you've watched other videos, I've talked about a grandfather and a couple of them, and this grandfather is not the same one I talked about. It's actually my dad's father. And I don't have a lot of memories of him because he was not a grandfather that I spent near as much time with as I did my grandfather on my mom's side. I'm someone who believes that we pick the people in our lifetime that we are going to learn from, who will teach us what we're meant to fulfill as our agreements for this lifetime, and who we're meant to become. And I feel very blessed that I chose the souls that I did to be my teachers. And I feel very blessed that they honored the agreements and what they would teach me. And my grandfather was one who taught me, among the things that he taught me, he honored the quietness that I was meant to learn as a child. He honored the silence that I felt best staying in. I wasn't one to talk a lot. I was one more to watch and listen and observe. And I anticipate he probably was one to open the doorway to me loving animals, because one memory I have of him is taking me to the zoo when I was a little girl. And he would take me and my cousin. We would both stay with him, or at least I would stay with him for a week. My cousin lived near him, so she probably was with him much more often. But in that week, he would take us to the zoo. And I don't necessarily remember all of the animals that we saw, but I remember going to the zoo with him. And my grandfather was also one that I think taught me the perspective around turning the other cheek. He, in his silence as well, he didn't judge. And I was around him in opportunities where he could have had an opinion. He could have had a very strong perspective, but he just held the space without judgment, and he accepted. And he held a space of loving unconditionally. And he met people where they were at. In that non-judgment, he had his own value system, but he never held other people to be as he was. And another gift he gave me is he taught me you can always find joy in the moments you are about to face the greatest loss. Which brings me to the sparklers and the weeping willow tree. So my grandparents, my grandfather and grandmother, they lived in a state, they lived out of state from where I live, but they did have a home in the state where I lived that was on a lake, and they would come up often and spend time at that lake. And in their yard was a weeping willow tree. And it was always beautiful, posed there between the lake and their home. And they had a swing by that weeping willow tree. So I always remember sitting on that swing under this canopy of hanging leaves and enjoying the lake. And on one particular 4th of July weekend, my mom and I went over to visit. And it was about 4 months before my grandpa would die of cancer. And he knew when we went to visit that he was dying. And my mom took sparklers, because again, that's their tradition. And I, to this day, and my grandfather has been gone probably near 40 years now, if I did the math. To this day, I can see him running, running through the yard, waving these sparklers as if he was 7 years old again. He was having so much fun doing something that I don't think he had ever done in his life. Here I was so blessed to do it every year. Probably took it for granted at the time. It's become so much more meaningful to me the older I get. It's one of those essentials. You know, I had somebody say yesterday, in this space that we're in right now, we're reevaluating what is essential. And for me, the simplicity of sparklers on the 4th of July with my mom is becoming an essential. A memory that I want to make every year for as long as I can. So anyway, back to my grandfather, running through the yard, the smile on his face, the pure joy is something that I still see. You know, maybe some of that joy was because he knew his days were numbered. Whatever he felt, he certainly never shared, except I did get to witness such pure joy. So today, what I wish for you is if you are in that space between grief and happiness, between joy and evaluating what is essential that feels like you're losing, or in that space of uncertainty, I wish for you in that stillness that probably sometimes is just way too loud. You know, sometimes the quietness is deafening, right? But in that stillness, what I wish for you is that you will find the gifts of non-judgment, compassion, joy, and if you could see this, I'm not going to be able to move the video to show you. As I'm sharing about joy, I am watching 2 rabbits hopping gleefully through the yard, also in pure joy. So yes, today I wish you most of all a day of joy. Namaste.